And one of the biggest misnomers is that these buffers are meant for when you're spraying and there's a sensitive crop downwind. If there's a sensitive crop downwind, you cannot spray. So the buffers don't apply there at all. The only reason buffers are in there, so they pertain to tree lines, brush lines, bodies of water. That's when you need to have a 110-foot downwind buffer. If the adjacent field next to you is corn, and it's buttoned up right against your extend soybean field, you don't need a downwind buffer because corn's a tolerant crop. Or if it's another extend crop, extend soybeans or extend cotton. I think another exception is if it's a tilled field or hasn't been planted yet. Then you don't need a 110-foot downwind buffer. However, if you have a tree line separating your extend, say, cotton field from a corn field, then you do technically need a 110-foot downwind buffer. The other question is make sure you know what is downwind. Refer to the registry now that the Tennessee Department of Ag has it online, or call your neighbors and see if there's tomatoes downwind, a vineyard downwind, Liberty Link soybeans downwind. Know where these sensitive crops are, so you know if the wind's going that direction, don't spray.
To recap, buffer zones are not applicable when a sensitive crop or residential area is downwind. When a sensitive crop is downwind, you should never spray dicamba. If the wind is blowing towards another sensitive area, such as a tree line or body of water, producers must observe a 110-foot downwind buffer from the field edge. If a producer is using XtendiMax or Fexapan at a rate greater than 22 ounces per acre, he must observe a 220-foot downwind buffer from the field edge. This applies to XtendiMax and Fexapan only. Additionally, in the 11 Tennessee counties that the EPA has designated as pesticide use limited areas, applicators must also observe a 57-foot buffer on all other sides of the field. Here's another look at the Tennessee counties where the additional 57-foot buffer is required. They are Chester, Davidson, Franklin, Grundy, Madison, Murray, McNairy, Montgomery, Polk, Rutherford, and White. In Wilson County, no dicamba applications are allowed. So what can be included in the buffer zone? Non-sensitive areas may be included as part of the buffer calculation when they are directly adjacent to the treated field. Examples of non-sensitive areas are roads, paved or gravel surfaces, mowed or managed areas such as rights-of-way, planted agricultural fields containing corn or dicamba-tolerant cotton or soybeans, and areas covered by the footprint of the building. Let's run through different scenarios and determine whether an applicator should spray using these West Tennessee fields as an example. The field to spray is located in the middle of the screen. In our first scenario, the wind is blowing from the southeast at speeds of 5 to 7 miles per hour. Can you spray? No. Non-dicamba tolerant soybeans are downwind, and if a sensitive crop is downwind, do not spray at all. Here's another scenario. This time, the wind is blowing from the west at 5 to 7 miles per hour. Can you spray? Yes, but you must maintain a 110-foot downwind buffer from the field edge because of the tree line between the fields of dicamba-tolerant soybeans. Now let's imagine this application is taking place in one of the 11 counties classified as pesticide limited use areas. In addition to the 110-foot downwind buffer, you would need a 57-foot buffer on all other sides of the field. So, since there are sensitive crops and a tree line to the north, the buffer would be 57 feet inside your field edge. Since buildings, paved areas, and fields planted in corn or other DT crops can be included in the buffer calculation, the 57-foot buffer zone on the west side of the field could be outside the field edge. In other words, a buffer zone is not required on the west side of the field in this particular scenario. To the south, the buffer zone can begin with the road and right-of-way adjacent to the field, moving inward 57 feet. Scenario 3. Winds from the northwest with gusts up to 10.5 miles per hour. Can you spray? No. You can never spray dicamba when the wind is gusting above 10 miles per hour. And finally, in this scenario, winds are blowing from the northeast at 5 to 7 miles per hour. Can you spray? No, and for two reasons. First, you'll notice there are several homes that are directly adjacent to the field to be sprayed. You should never apply dicamba when residential areas are downwind and adjacent to the field in question. But another reason not to spray is that tomato production is also downwind. While not directly adjacent to the field, these tomatoes could still be in harm's way if the applicator inadvertently sprays into a temperature inversion or if volatilization occurs. And since crops like tomatoes, tobacco, grapes, or pumpkins are so sensitive to dicamba, off-target movement could be financially devastating to this producer. University of Tennessee experts recommend avoiding dicamba applications when sensitive crops are downwind within a half mile of the field to be sprayed. It is up to the applicator to monitor the Field Watch website as well as contact producers of sensitive crops within this range.